It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So
This isn't Self-Esteem Weekly. This is a reality check.
Craig, shut up. It's Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, it's the end of the podcast and I feel fine. Welcome to the podcast. If you are a new listener, you're a little bit late. And if you're a long-time listener, thank you very much for listening and sticking by me. 249 episodes done, and I figured that with all the things that were telling me that it was the end of the line, 250 was a good place to stop. I thought I'd leave you with some final thoughts and a kind of half-assed explanation on why I'm finally ending the podcast after 7 years. I've been thinking about this for about a year now. I knew last May when I was constantly scrambling for guests that this path was basically unsustainable. You know, as my speaking career has been quickly fading away in the last 2 years, it's been harder to get guests because many of my guests come from upcoming events. And I'm not getting as many of those events anymore, so less events means less access to people, which means less episodes. You know, add in the fact that the National Speakers Association's annual conference, which I would go to every year to collect a bunch of interviews at once, it just became too expensive to attend. I couldn't go last year, and that was also a pretty glaring road sign to tell me that, hey, it's time to put things to bed. And while I've thoroughly enjoyed doing the show, it never really hit any of my goals that I planned for. You know, the number of listeners hasn't really increased the past few years. And while I'm happy for the guests I've had on, my options on quality guests and the type of guests I wanted were not there. I can't tell you how many million-dollar get-rich types would reach out to me on a regular basis, or the boring mainstream management person who didn't really have anything new to say, but they had a book or they had some kind of program and they wanted me to have them on to talk about run-of-the-mill mainstream management, which to me is boring. The people I did put on the show, every single person I happily stand by. I'm glad they came on the show. I spent time finding the right people for you, but it was just trying to find all these different people and finding new people that kind of took its toll. The big red flag was when moving to California, where I only know my wife, and networking is not my forte. I can't tell you how many people who have been on the show have helped me get more people on the show, because I certainly am not really good at finding new people, especially when I have absolutely nowhere to start. I just got here. I've only been really in San Jose for a couple months. I haven't even figured out my town yet, never mind going to San Jose where it's even bigger, and San Francisco, which is even more massive. So I haven't even put that out there yet. So the guest well had run dry, and it's time to move on. It's called Reality Check for a reason, and the reality is I can't get the people I want to you on a consistent enough basis to make this all worthwhile. Like many things in my life, the goal has often been the MacGuffin in my movie. Something that was there just to drive the story, but not really as important as other things that have happened. The show has been random, and that is on purpose, and that actually was a detriment for the first couple years until people finally figured out that each week something new and completely different might happen, and that's when listenership went up. Now, the show helped me find new people, and I learned a lot of different subjects. I think the show helped me be a better interviewer. I'm still not sure how good I am. The podcast did open the door to moderating at Comic-Cons and other things. That is something I really, truly love to do, but it's also another struggle in my life to find opportunities to do. So I want to thank the Salt Lake FanX, which has been super supportive in that they not only put me in positions to interact with great guests. I've got to interview Joan Cusack for you guys. I've got to, in other podcasts that you have not listened to, Matinee Heroes, for example, I hosted panels, and I've gotten to meet some great people. I also want to thank Devin Pike, who also put me in a great position for the Marvelous Nerd Year's Eve, because I got to do a bunch of great moderating there, thanks to the podcast. I want to thank Comic Palooza. Not only were they the first ones that allowed me to moderate, it's also been a great place for me to get my feet wet, learning how to moderate, learning what the Comic-Con life is like and what behind the scenes are going on. So, of course, I want to thank Carrie Gordon for that and John Simons. So all those great things that I've learned and I've gotten to do, and I've talked to folks, even with their help, marketing and promotion are just not my strong suit. So with the lack of listeners and even hard to find guests, the show's curtain can finally come down. But before I go, I did want to thank some folks. Right off the bat, I want to thank Alan Cerny, who has been on the show a record 27 times. He's been on so often that we decided to make our own podcast, which is actually going quite well, called Matinee Heroes. You can listen to us at matineeheroes.com. That podcast will still continue. Anastasia Ciccetta, who's been on every year but last year. That's a total of 6 times, talking about dentistry and things that are going on in the dental industry. Always fun talking to her. And when I couldn't do that last year, that was also a signal. Of course, I want to thank Avish Parashar, who's been on 6 times, as has Jessica Pettit. Both have been on 6 times, and Jessica is the person I will reschedule any roundtable around so she can be a part of it. Without her, those roundtables, to me, wouldn't have been as good. I really appreciate her take time out of her busy schedule to do that, especially when she was on the board of National Speakers Association, always busy. I want to thank Tom Singer and Mike Domish, both 5-timers. Unlike Saturday Night Live, there is no 5-timers club. But they both have their own podcasts that, quite frankly, are better than mine, and you should go listen to them. Tom hosts Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do, and Michael Domish has the Everyday Mindfulness Show. I want to thank Patrick Allman and Phil Gerbishek. Patrick, who's been on 4 or 5 times, he would jump on the phone when I couldn't get a guest, and he would talk about something worthwhile in social media. And of course, Phil, who has been a good friend of mine for a while, a great and supportive guy, and I really appreciate Phil. And of course, Scott McCain, who is on twice, but he's been technically on over 200 times because he does that beautiful, gorgeous introduction. And I want to thank Scott for that. I'm still podcasting. Alan and Cerny and I do Matinee Heroes, as I've said, and we do it every week. It's doing quite well. I really enjoy doing it. I'm learning new things every week. I get to watch movies. And if you want to hear us talk about great movies and heroic cinema, you can hear me there. New episodes come out every Saturday morning. So I want to sincerely thank everyone for listening. I appreciated all the support. It really opened a lot of doors and a lot of experiences that I wouldn't have had on my own. I'm not sure what's next for me, but just like the podcast, week to week, I rarely did anyways. So that sounds about right. That's the show. No, really, that's the show. That's the entire show. Thanks, everybody.